Utlubul ilma walau bisin means, seek knowledge even if it takes you to China. This saying has echoed for centuries among Muslims, a call to pursue truth, even in lands as distant and mysterious as ancient China. But what if that call was more than just about knowledge? What if it was also a whisper from history? The last messenger told us that Allah sent 124,000 prophets. Of them, only a handful are named. The rest? Their stories were lost, or perhaps hidden. Could it be that among those countless messengers, some walked the mountains of the East, spoke in languages we no longer recognize, and left behind truths woven into legend, philosophy, and myth? After all, China is one of the world's oldest civilizations, a land rich in astronomy, ethics, writing, and cosmic order. Is it truly possible that such a land, so vast, so ancient, was never touched by revelation? Or is it more likely that the messengers did come, but their names were changed, their scrolls lost, and their light folded quietly into the soul of a civilization? In this series, we ask the questions that history forgot. Could Idris have brought sacred writing to the East? Did Noah cross lands beyond the flood to reach a distant kingdom? Was Zulkifli one of the sages remembered but unnamed? And did Khidr, the eternal traveler, once walk the Silk Road, unseen but never absent? This is not fiction. This is the thread of possibility, sewn into faith, wrapped in mystery, waiting to be unraveled. Long before Abraham walked the earth, long before the pyramids stood tall, there was a man unlike any other, a prophet, a sage, a scribe. His name was Idris, known to many as Enoch. Idris is remembered in Islamic tradition as the first to write with a pen, the first to understand the stars, and the first human to be lifted into the heavens. But a question rarely asked is this: before his ascension, where did he go? Could it be that Idris once traveled to ancient China? In Islam, Prophet Idris alayhi salam is mentioned briefly but powerfully. The Quran says, "And we raise him to a high station." Surah Maryam 1957. Scholars agree he was not an ordinary prophet. He was the first to write, the first to teach reading, the first astronomer, the first tailor, and the first human given access to higher knowledge. In the Judeo-Christian world, he is known as Enoch, the one who walked with God and then was no more. Civilizations in ancient China date back over 4,000 years, filled with philosophical depth, mystery, and spiritual richness. If Prophet Idris was truly a global teacher, a prophet of wisdom and knowledge, why would China be left out? After all, early Chinese culture was deeply rooted in astronomy, alchemy, ethics, and cosmic balance, values strongly aligned with what Idris was known for. Some alternative historians believe that Idris did not remain in the Middle East. Instead, they suggest that he traveled eastward, bringing with him the art of writing, the understanding of time, and cosmic order. Ancient Chinese texts speak of mysterious sages who arrived from the West, introduced celestial calendars, and spoke of a heavenly book written in a language of light and stars. Could this heavenly book be the same knowledge Idris received from the divine? Could Idris have been the bridge between prophetic wisdom and the foundations of Chinese metaphysics? Taoist philosophy teaches of the Tao, the way of a universe, of harmony, balance, and unseen forces guiding life. Some scholars propose that Taoism didn't originate entirely within China, but was inspired or seeded by an earlier traveler, someone with deep cosmic awareness. Idris was known to measure the stars, track time, and understand divine patterns. The Quran and Hadith depict him as a man of precision, patience, and celestial knowledge, much like the Taoist sages. In the ancient city of Dunhuang, where the Silk Road kissed the desert, certain manuscripts mention a heavenly man who taught without speaking, who wrote without ink, and who left behind diagrams of the stars. His name is lost, but the description closely matches that of Idris, a man of wisdom, clothed in robes unknown to the Chinese, and who vanished without a trace, like a dream that lingers after waking. If Idris was the first to write, and calligraphy became sacred in China, is it possible that some part of his teaching was preserved in the art of Chinese characters? The earliest Chinese script, oracle bone writing, is filled with symbols for the heavens, for balance, for time. Idris is described in Islamic tradition as teaching writing, tailoring, timekeeping, and observation. Many of these traits mysteriously appeared in early Chinese civilization, seemingly without prior roots. Eventually, Idris was raised to the heavens. His physical journey ended, but his wisdom echoes across cultures and eras. Perhaps his visit to China left subtle fingerprints. In philosophy, in calendars and sacred writing, or even in the idea of harmony between heaven and earth, a mystery not solved by archaeology, but felt in the soul of ancient civilizations. History does not always record the whole truth. Sometimes, the greatest figures pass like shadows, their influence rippling through time and silence. Prophet Idris may not be recorded in Chinese annals by name, but perhaps his light reached those far eastern lands, not as a conqueror, but as a whisper from the divine. And maybe, just maybe, the monks, the astronomers, and the wise men of ancient China were echoing the voice of Idris without even knowing it. What do you think? Do you believe a prophet like Idris could have walked among the ancient Chinese? Or has history been hiding this truth in plain sight? Before the pyramids, before the empires, there was a man chosen by the heavens, a man who built an ark, not just of wood and nails, but of faith, obedience, and purpose. His name was Nuh, known to many as Noah, the builder of the Arkansas, the survivor of the Great Flood. But here's the mystery. What happened to him after the flood? Was his journey truly confined to the Middle East? Or did he, like many prophets, travel farther than we imagine? Could Prophet Noah have once stepped onto the ancient soil of China? Prophet Noah alayhi salam is not just a figure of the Quran. He is honored in the Bible, the Torah, and ancient oral traditions across the world. The Quran tells us, "Indeed, we sent Noah to his people." Surah Nuh 71, first ayah, but it also hints that his message had universal echoes, reaching not just one region, but warning all mankind through time. And the flood itself, described in dozens of cultures, from Mesopotamia to India, even in ancient Chinese folklore. In ancient Chinese texts, like the Shanhai Jing, classic of mountains and seas, and the records of the Yu the Great legend, we find tales eerily similar to the Noahic flood. The myth speaks of a catastrophic deluge, and a great leader who preserved life, taught morality, and restored balance. Some Chinese scholars interpret this as more than myth. They see signs of a migrating messenger, one who carried divine instruction and civilization from afar. Could this flood hero be Noah himself? According to Islamic tradition, the ark came to rest on Mount Judy. But then what? The Quran does not say that Noah died there. It simply transitions other stories, leaving a gap that has long intrigued scholars. Some alternative historians and researchers suggest that Nuh and his descendants traveled east, spreading knowledge, agriculture, ethics, and divine stories. Among their possible destinations, the rising civilization of ancient China. Early Chinese civilization made sudden leaps in irrigation, farming, boat building, and astronomy. Interestingly, the first Chinese emperors were described as semi-divine figures who brought order after flood. One such figure, Yu the Great, is credited with taming the waters and teaching people how to survive future disasters. What if Yu the Great wasn't the originator, but a student or heir of Noah's teachings? Could Noah have planted the seeds of early Chinese civilization, unknowingly becoming a legendary figure within a different tongue? Language changes, names evolve, stories morph into myth. Is it possible that Nuh became Nuwa or Nu-Kwa in Chinese oral memory, or that his teachings were absorbed and reinterpreted through Confucian ethics and Taoist cosmology? We may never find an inscription that says, Noah was here, but when we follow the symbols, the legends, the moral codes, a pattern emerges. Islam teaches us that many prophets were sent, some whose stories were told, and many whose names were never revealed. What if some prophets went east, far beyond Arabia and the Levant, carrying divine messages to peoples we now call Chinese, Korean, or Japanese? And what if Noah himself, as the second father of mankind, was also the first teacher of the East? Perhaps Noah never set foot in Beijing or Xi'an, or perhaps he did, not as a ruler or traveler, but as a silent messenger, planting truth in new soil. If he did go to China, his footsteps are long faded, but the echo of his journey might still whisper through philosophies, ethics, and myths of one of the oldest civilizations on Earth. What do you think? Could Prophet Noah have once brought his message to ancient China? Or are these just parallel echoes in humanity's shared memory? In the vast silence of ancient lands, there are echoes of stories left untold, of prophets whose names we barely know, and of journeys history never dared to record. One of these names is Dhul-Kifl, or Zulkifli, as he is often called, a prophet mentioned briefly in the Quran, a man of patience, righteousness, and strength. But who was he really? And where did his path lead? Could it be that Zulkifli once walked the lands of ancient China? In the Quran, Zulkifli is mentioned only twice, once alongside other prophets, and once as a man of steadfastness. There is no detailed story, no lineage, no location, just a name surrounded by mystery. But in that silence, scholars and seekers have long asked, was Dhul-Kifl a title or a name? What Kifl was he associated with? And could this clue point us eastward, toward the ancient world of China? For centuries, Chinese records have spoken of sages, wise men from the West who came bearing truths, speaking of one God and teaching ethics, balance, and justice. Some of these stories tell of a foreign holy man, gentle in nature, unshaken in storms, who refused power and wealth, and instead chose to guide quietly, in silence and humility. Does this description remind you of anyone? Because to many seekers, it resembles Dhul-Kifl, the one chosen for his patience and trustworthiness. During the early prophetic eras, travel through the Silk Road's earliest forms was already known. The lands east of Persia were not isolated, but in contact through trade, ideas, and even spirituality. If Dhul-Kifl was sent as a prophet beyond his homeland, China would be a logical destination, a rising civilization with deep philosophical yearnings, seeking cosmic order, ethics, and harmony. Could Allah have sent him to answer their call? Some Chinese oral traditions tell of a quiet sage who appeared suddenly, stayed for a time, and then vanished, leaving behind teachings about peace, truth, and endurance. He never led armies. He never claimed power, but his legacy shaped hearts and whispered through generations. Scholars have compared this figure to both Zoroaster and Buddha, but what if, just what if, he was Dhul-Kifl, a prophet sent not to dominate, but to guide gently, leaving no grand monuments, only echoes in the soul of China. Some say Dhul-Kifl was Zoroaster, the Persian prophet. Others believe he was Ezekiel, the Hebrew visionary. But could both be true and not true at the same time? What if Dhul-Kifl was not confined to one title or region, but was part of a prophetic continuum, a messenger who walked across civilizations, including ancient China, under a different name? Zulkifli's greatness is not in miracles or battles, but in his silent strength. His name means the one with responsibility, a man who accepted the burden of prophethood when others would not. Maybe that's why history barely mentions him, because he never sought recognition. He came, fulfilled his task, and returned to God. His legacy carried not in books, but in the hidden memory of cultures waiting to be rediscovered. Perhaps Prophet Dhul-Kifl never entered China, or perhaps he did, not with banners or armies, but with a heart full of divine light and a mission to plant faith where it was most needed. His story may remain unwritten, but in the values of patience, righteousness, and silent devotion, found in both Islam and Chinese wisdom, maybe his footprints still remain. What do you think? What if Dhul-Kifl was one of the hidden messengers sent to the East? Have we overlooked his story in the very scrolls we call myth? There are stories that slip through the cracks of history, stories not lost, but hidden, waiting for those who dare to look beyond the written page. One such story is about a man, a guide, a servant of God known as Khidr, the Green One, a man of eternal life, a prophet, a wali, or something between. But here's the question that echoes like a whisper through time. Could Khidr have once walked the lands of ancient China? Not as a conqueror, not as a preacher, but as a silent traveler, fulfilling a divine mission, known only to God. In Surah Al-Kahf, we meet a man known simply as Khidr, a servant of Allah who possessed divine knowledge, unseen even to Prophet Moses himself. Khidr did what appeared wrong, only to reveal later that his actions were guided by unseen wisdom. According to Islamic tradition, he is still alive, roaming the earth with a mission known only to his Lord. So where's he gone? What lands has he touched? And what secrets lie in the places he once visited? The Silk Road was more than trade. It was a bridge of cultures and souls. And as Islam teaches us, divine wisdom is not bound by geography. It is entirely possible, some say even likely, that Khidr's divine mission led him eastward toward the mysterious kingdoms of ancient China, not to teach in the open, but to inspire, to observe, to guide silently, perhaps appearing as a sage, a wanderer, or even a monk whose teachings shaped dynasties. Ancient Chinese thought is filled with unexplainable insights. Concepts like Wu Wei, non-action rooted in divine wisdom, mirror the same paradoxes Khidr demonstrated to Musa. There are Chinese legends of immortal beings who come in secret, correct wrongs quietly, and vanish before anyone knows their names. Could these figures be inspired by encounters with Khidr, a servant of God who never needed to be known, only to act when and where Allah willed it? Unlike other prophets whose missions were to specific nations, Khidr was mobile, timeless, unrestricted. Ibn Arabi and many classical scholars believe that Khidr could appear in any land at any time to fulfill a mission from the unseen world. Would it really be so strange if this mysterious figure appeared in the farthest east, where souls were seeking light in the age of dynasties and emperors? Some Chinese texts tell of a foreign sage, dressed in green, unknown by name, who healed, advised kings in silence, and left no temple or religion behind. He came in peace, corrected one moment in history, and vanished. These are not coincidences. They are fingerprints. Fingerprint a man who leaves no trace, except in the wisdom he imparts and the balance he restores. Khidr may have inspired stories of Laozi, the founder of Taoism, or the many immortal mountain sages in Taoist folklore. Some even say he once walked the same paths as Confucius, but never met him, staying just one village away, correcting what needed correction, then vanishing before history could write his name. Whether legend or truth, the signs are scattered like puzzle pieces. The green-robed sage, the one who acts with strange wisdom, the traveler who never settles, the bringer of peace who asks for no credit. That is Khidr, and maybe, just maybe, he walked the mountains of China, whispered to its kings, and left behind seeds of truth wrapped in mystery. What if the Chinese sages were not alone in their search for Tao the way? What if someone had already shown them glimpses of true divine order, but left no name, no monument? In the story of Khidr, we're reminded, not all guidance is visible. Not all prophets come to lead in public. Some are sent to whisper into history and disappear before the world knows what happened. What do you think? Do you believe Prophet Khidr ever walked the lands of ancient China? Or has his journey remained a hidden chapter, waiting to be told?